Calling to order the February 10th, 2025 meeting of the Beacon City School District Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vicki, can you call the roll? Here. Excused, I believe.
Here.
Here. Excused.
Here. Here.
Here. Here. Matt, can you point out the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Alrighty. So now it's open to the public. Does anybody have a public comment that they would like to make? Okay, come on down. Just introduce yourself, and in general, we give folks 4 minutes for public comment.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Cesar Cruz, and I live at 5010 Boulder Way, Wappingers Falls, and we pay Beacon school taxes. My wife and I have a concern regarding the BOCES program. Our son, which is a sophomore at Beacon High School, has been looking forward to attending BOCES in his junior year next year for HVAC plumbing. He was inspired to go to BOCES when he was in 8th grade, when he attended a summer program they had, and he really liked it. So he's been looking forward to go there. They were encouraged to apply during his sophomore year due to the need for skilled trade professionals. And our concern is that he was recently told that due to budget limitations, there is a possibility that he may not be able to go to BOCES next year when he's a junior. Also, he found out through another student that his counselor had mentioned something similar to him, and that there could be a very limited amount of maybe 20 spots for the BOCES program, which seems very low, so we don't know how accurate that is. But as parents, we're concerned and wanted to see if it can be a consideration of maybe increasing that amount for the benefit of the students that are interested in that program. We appreciate you considering it, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt, is that anything that you've?
That's not a message from me. So I don't know every single year. I think we usually tend to have around 40 plus students go to CTI at BOCES. So I don't. Let me look into what is being communicated. But we've always really tried to make a program available for all the students who want to do it every year. And we've probably been through tougher budget years than the one we're looking at least from what we're seeing from the governor right now. So let me just do a little looking into it. I'll talk to Mr. Dwyer tomorrow, and we'll be back in touch. But I apologize about the stress that's causing you, and I totally understand also, like, when your child's excited about something, and I'm just trying to think. It could be some messaging that, like, maybe in the past, like, we've had some issue with, like, a very small number of kids not getting, so I don't know what may have precipitated that being said, but let me just look into it. And thank you for letting me know about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your concerns. Okay, so moving on, were there any more people who wanted to contribute public comment? Seeing none. Matt, would you like to talk about board goals and strategic planning?
Yeah. Okay, so many of us were tearing ourselves away from senior night for varsity basketball today. So this is going to be pretty brief. It's just kind of an indication of where I want to go over the next few months regards to some support work we want to do with budget planning, also strategic planning, and to get the board thinking about maybe just some quick, I don't say quick, but like some maybe simple changes to the goals. So there's no decisions on this tonight, This is just sort of informational only. And I'm just basically tonight kind of previewing some work that we have in mind for the next few months and next year. All right. So just wanted to quickly review our district beliefs, board goals, and the strategic planning focus areas. I did make a couple revisions to the budget calendar, and then at the very end, we have the sort of the last part of the budget we talk about in March and April is the instructional budget, and I wanted to just get some thoughts from you all if you have them about things we should be including in that. So just a quick overview on the right, we came up with this a strategic planning group. A lot of these belief statements are already in place from the board prior to that. But when we were creating a strategic plan, we created a mission, a vision, and those 3 belief statements that were kind of adopted from board goals. So these have been in place for a number of years. The BCSD board goals, for the most part, there's been some changes, but the language around the goals have been pretty much the same over the last 7 or 8 years. We have an excellence goal, an equity goal, a communication goal, a sustainability goal, a culture of care goal, and a fiscal goal. So I'm not going to read everything that's on these slides. It's just kind of a review. So this language, I think we added sustainability probably about 5 or 6 years ago. But this language in these goals, we added culture of care about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. But most of this has been in place for a number of years. So then when we went through the strategic planning process 3 years ago, we created just some focus areas for the group. And we had an academic excellence group, a diversity and staff and opportunities group, a high quality curriculum group, and a community engagement and involvement group. And so that work produced a lot of energy and a lot of great initiatives in the district, as did the board goals. However, what I'm seeing is just sometimes amongst us administrators, probably no one else is looking at this too closely, but it creates having different language for board goals and different language for strategic planning goals is coming to a part where it just doesn't make sense anymore. And for instance, when I speak with the principals about preparing their presentations for the year, they'll say focus on the strategic planning and the board goals, and then we realize there's a lot of overlap, and then also with that we're not providing a lot of detail behind what we're doing, at least publicly, even though there may be a lot of detail that we're involved with, and then also just making it more visible to the entire public as well. So with that overlap between pillars and goals, we wanted to at least propose how we're going to move forward with this. And again, so I'm not saying the board needs to change your goals tonight. I'm sort of envisioning you all figure out a timeline for that makes sense.
Sure.
But we're going to try to change our strategic planning thing that sort of fits with the board goals in a way that just is clear for us, us administrators. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some supporting work we want to do to make it a little more detailed, more public. So it just in terms of these are my recommendations in terms of moving forward, and this is how we're going to approach budget season this year, and also just our planning efforts in the district. So kind of looking at board goals and that strategic planning language, we're doing some merging here. So we want to have an academic excellence goal or sort of umbrella for work, and I'll talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. A culture of care, a community outreach and communication, and then fiscal, facilities, and human resources. To me, we could just go with fiscal and just know that it includes all those things, or we have all those 3 things there. I mean, so all this is just words. The important stuff is what we actually do. I get all that, but it's just sort of that clarity around language is helpful for us moving forward in terms of how we think about things. So each of these focus areas moving forward, we want to have some supporting plans. One of the things that when we were in the strategic planning, it's on the website. It focuses on a lot of different areas, but we have been and continue to do an enormous amount of work in reading, as you're all aware, and that wasn't reflected in the strategic planning work. We want to change that and make that a part of So what's visible to the public and also just part of board planning as well. So for each focus area, we want to have supporting plans. I'll talk about those. I think it's important that they're pretty brief. They're clear where we're headed for the upcoming year, and they have some measurable data points for us to see how we're doing. And then, so the belief statements, we have an operating principle amongst our team that the diversity belief that we have, that's a board goal, is one that underlies all the work that we do. And so we didn't want it to be like a separate item. Like we want it to be reflective in every plan that we make and every goal that we work on and every focus area. The board created a sustainability goal 5 or 6 years ago. I don't want to lose that at all. I think when I look at it, it feels like more of like a belief statement that underlies all of those things too. Not just like facilities, but it should be part of our academic excellence. It should be part of our communication and community outreach. So that's something for the board to ponder over the next few months, but I think that should slide over to a belief statement. At least that's makes it make more sense maybe for my brain. So diversity, equity, and sustainability are the foundation of all of our work. If we go back, we have those three things there. Diversity is our strength, equitable education, and culture of care. Those are 3 belief statements. And we would add sustainability to that. And then board goals for something for the board to ponder over the next few months is there's an academic excellence goal, a culture of care goal, a community outreach and communication goal, and a school facilities and HR goal. Goals, that's an overarching goal, but a lot of supporting plans to go underneath those. For academic excellence, so a lot of these plans either already exist, some are very robust, some need work, but for the academic excellence goal, what we're envisioning is the strategic planning part of the website. It has those 4 main areas, academic excellence being one. I'll go through the others in a second, but then you click on that, and underneath that is like all the supporting plans. And I'm not talking about like 20-page plans. I don't want to have stuff that overwhelms everyone and they just click off. I'm talking about like 1-page or 2-page plans that give a quick overview of where we're headed as a district and where we've come from. So reading, math, and multi-tiered student support, special education, curriculum / the new graduation requirements, PD, technology, athletics, and health. There may be more, and I'm not saying like everyone in the district has to be focused on each aspect of this, but it's somewhere, all of this is happening, but we're not sort of making it visible for the public to see, and I think that's an issue. The culture of care, goal or focus area, guidance plan, a social emotional curriculum plan, code of conduct. We put a lot of time, as you know, just from the change we made with cell phones, and there's probably more changes coming. We put a lot of time into the code of conduct. It should be part of this work. It should be seen that way, because I think we have one that's very student-centered, and we're always trying to revise it, so it should be there. And then a wellness plan. But with these, so the state requires a guidance plan, social emotional curriculum plan. When we are saying stuff like, yeah, you know, Sargent started the Positivity Project. In January, the other 3 elementary schools are picking it up. And then next year, we're trying to find ways for it to be integrated into the middle school. We need to put that plan in writing so people can see it. Community outreach communication, the supporting plans for that would be a plan for our website. That's work that's happening, but we want to make it a little bit more visible. Social media plan, an outreach / events plan, and a school classroom communication plan. And again, these are things that are in motion. For the most part, it's just like documenting the work we're doing, but also refining, revising. I don't want it to be like, we're perfect, we're just going to put, you know, we're going to tell them what we're doing. Like this is always a work in progress. Fiscal facilities and HR. For the finances, we have corrective action plans based off our audits. That should be visible for folks to see. I mean, it's on board agendas, but more visible on our website. Facilities plan, capital project plan, those things probably are together, and a human resources plan. As we invest more into that position, having, that department have specific plans in terms of recruitment strategies, new software tools we're using, interview process, stuff like that. So again, I'm just sort of like, I'm going quickly through this because I don't see tonight as like the most important part of this. I see us bringing these things to the board and the public being the important part. But I wanted to say it's something that just talking with the principals and talking with, Saggy, Heather, and Anne Marie, it's like having something that's just a little bit more focused for us, and the strategic plan being aligned with board goals. It just makes sense to us to do it this way. So we want to take the next couple of months through the budget process and start delivering some of this work. As the PR Advocacy Committee knows, we're having a new website this summer for the district, so we certainly want a lot of this to be ready for that and up before that. So just to review what I was thinking, we add sustainability to a district belief. That's something for you all to consider. Our district focus areas are academic excellence, culture of care, community outreach and communication, and fiscal facilities HR. Supporting plans are updated and completed to support budget recommendations in the spring and finalized in the summer. So what I'm envisioning as part of our budget process, and I think this will help our work together, is when we're presenting to you, let's just say hypothetically, we want to add a math support teacher and 2 reading teachers. We want to provide a plan, like a visible plan that, like, this is why we need this and this is how we're going to use those people. And so not only can the board see it, but the public. I think in the past, I've been doing more of we need this position or that position, and we want to provide more backing rationale for it, but also a plan of how we're going to use the positions. Regular updates would be available on these, and I don't want to make anything. Whenever I've been doing this a while now, and I've been involved in all kinds of different planning efforts, and whenever it's too detailed, everything just gets bogged down, and you feel like you're spending more time updating, the plan than actually doing the work. So we don't want that. However, we're doing a lot of great stuff. There's areas where we can improve, but a lot of that's not visible to the public through either board goals or strategic planning. We want to start trying to address that. So I hate having slides where it's like all words and I'm just sort of talking at you. But so what our goal is over the next couple of months with budget presentations, we're showing some of these plans. And some of these already exist. Some of these we're working on. We're like, here's this quick overview to what we're doing with reading. Here's this quick overview to what we're doing with special education. Here's this quick overview to what we're doing with facilities. We want to be more visible with that. And I think it's a great accountability function to be sharing it with the board and having you all kind of respond to it too. So that's my piece on that. So maybe I'll just go through the whole thing and then we can kind of talk. But I also want to be clear, we're going to try to present the budget with this focus. And so can be an ongoing thing in terms of what you all want to do with board goals. And, it's not like a tonight kind of thing at all. With Anne Marie being out, we wanted to just make some quick revisions to our budget calendar. So we're going to start at the next board meeting with the athletics budget presentation. March 10th, I have transportation facilities. I put RMS, Roundabout Middle School, there because with a potential schedule change, we'd love to take some time to dig into that more at that meeting. I think it's important to do that a little bit earlier in the budget process because that if the budget continues to be positive, that could be an area that takes some new resources from the district. So we want to start talking about that at the board level. I also want to talk about the board level so then I can also talk about it with the Roundabout folks to their parents and community and staff and, stakeholders in terms of what we're thinking. March 24th, we talk about PPS and pre-K. and then April 10th, instructional programs and technology. And then you have like the required parts of the budget process. My one last quick thing is with the instructional budget, and this is totally an area where I want to improve. When we were starting to prepare for the retreat that we had to reschedule, we were looking at some districts that are kind of have a really high standard of what they share on the budget, and it really made me think an area where we don't get as detailed is the instructional part of the budget, which is the biggest part. Right? Typically, we do look at data and we look at some aspects, and then I'll kind of make a case for like we need some more positions this year, and this is why. I think we could do a richer job of showing exactly what we're spending the money on instructionally. In terms of like class size, teachers allocated to different buildings, support people, make it just not only visible to the board, but also the community through the slides and presentations we do. But one last piece, if you have any responses either tonight or as we go forward, I'd love to get a sense from the board of things you want to see in that instructional budget. I think I said this to Flora the other day, that it's the biggest part of our budget, and it's the one where I kind of will come up at the very end and say we need 2 more teachers next year to do X and Y, and when there's a lot more we need to be sharing to the community about what all these resources are supporting and all the things that we're currently doing too. So this came together on the snow day last week, and I was worried that it's like the way my head works, and it may not make sense to anybody. So it doesn't have to make sense to you tonight. Like this is going to be an ongoing thing. But if you have any initial thoughts about what I'm sharing, and then also like thoughts about what you want to see in the instructional budget workshop, like later in the spring, I'd love to hear either all of that.
I just to sort of, because I want to organize these ideas as well. So belief statements would be diversity, equity, culture of care, sustainability. Board goals would be excellence, culture of care, communication, fiscal responsibility, equity, and sustainability. So you see overlap there. And really the board goals are also the district goals, in a sense. And then focus areas are academic excellence, culture of care, community outreach, communication, and fiscal, facilities, human resources. So there's like areas of overlap for all 3. Is that right? The way
I
I'm
may have
thinking
gotten
about
a little lost, which may be how all you were feeling as I went through it. But I think what I'm saying is like, we just have these 4 focus areas that sort of are umbrellas for all of our work.
Okay.
And that those are the board goals. I think having like a separate
okay.
goal for equity or a separate goal for sustainability, when I think those are more beliefs of who we are.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of up to the board. I'm just like, and I'm not saying we have to kind of organize our work. I've had this effort all this school year to try to move us to a better strategic planning process, but not hiring a consultant to do it.
Right.
Right. And so I think this is a way that makes sense to us.
Okay.
And then it also like having those support plans. Like I don't ever want someone to say, why isn't reading in the strategic plan? Like that's one of the most important things we do. Right. Like,
Right.
So we want that to be one of the first things people can click on. Like here's
Sure.
I'm putting page numbers to these things I shouldn't, but here's our brief reading plan. Here's our math plan.
Okay.
Here's our special education plan.
I didn't understand that.
To me, I think the language for the goals could be the same language that the board has always had. It's me trying to like fill it in and make it richer.
Okay.
And if you want to have sustainability still be a goal, like I'm totally fine with that. I just felt like it seems like it really fits with like the diversity
Everything.
statement.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
me, it's like a belief, and it underlies all that we do.
Yeah, that's come up before, that using, sustainability really is maybe more of a lens to look through things. And I think it's great to pull it out and have it be part of the umbrella, that we think about everything. That makes sense to me. I think we should take some time to just look at the language around the board goals and see if we can maybe make them a little bit more clear and complement the strategic plan, so that they're complementing each other and I actually like reducing it to 4. I feel like it's like if you have more than 4 light switches in a room, you're never going to remember, it's just, there's only so much you can keep in your head. And I feel like the facilities and human resources being under fiscal makes a lot of sense to me. I think that I wanted to ask you in terms of the way you're shifting the strategic plan. We did a lot of like very specific work about what each thing meant. And do you think that there will be, the plan is great. I think the plan, and having, someone who's not, like a new parent is looking at our website and trying to understand what the district is about and being able to like click on each thing and understand the reading plan and things like that, I think is really helpful. I'm wondering in terms of like metrics, outcomes, and then, I don't know, like, do we need also to think about more concrete examples, or will that be included in the plan? Will that be understood in the plan?
Yeah, I don't totally know exactly what it's going to look like. I think I wanted to organize our work a little bit using board goal language. I wanted to stop having things feel separate when I had a principal ask me, am I presenting on board goals or strategic planning? That's when I was like, I'm doing this totally wrong, right? They shouldn't be asking me that. That's when it's not making sense, right? And we have great principals. Like, they should just know, like, yeah, these are 4 areas where I'm expected to focus on, right?
Right.
And so part of me feels like, to what the cliche, the proof's in the pudding on this, like, as the next couple of months go, we want to start sharing some of these with you all to respond to. I'm sort of think it's a great time to do this with our budget preparation, because it's like here's the plan for reading. I'm going to pick on reading for a second, and this is why we're asking for X, Y, and Z next year, right?
I mean, it could kind of be like how we have metrics under the board goals, and this could be a better way of addressing them by making sure those, whatever metrics that we determine we want to focus on.
Yeah,
our
I mean,
goals.
we could call it board goals / district focus.
Yeah, whatever we
but
call
it's
it.
like academic excellence. Those things underneath academic excellence, and there may be more. I want like a link for each of those things and have
Right,
it be very
exactly.
readable, like very clear. And there's metrics that either are right there or like a click away to like see the reading data or like the attendance data, or you know what I mean, whatever
Right.
we feel like is supporting that.
Right.
So there's nothing, this isn't rocket science here. I'm just trying to kind of organize it in a way that makes sense for us. And I think it's a way to engage with you all differently and maybe at a higher level. And I'm not saying we're not, I don't mean that, I'm sort of focusing that on myself. Like I want to have more information for y'all to see, and the public, when we're talking about budget stuff and beyond, right? I also am envisioning, like, once the school year is going, that we just revisit a plan, right? Like, where are we? How's that implementation going?
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things. So I think it's a way for board members to organize, but it also helps us organize. And I feel like if we're organizing in the same way, that helps all of us, kind of.
Well, I feel like it's really creating a map, like that we would all have the district at our fingertips in a way, in a really nice way. We can always we can look at it ourselves, we can direct a community member to it. And I think that while I really thought the work on the strategic plan was important and powerful, we got a little narrow. And I think that this is a really nice, like, all-encompassing map of what we're doing in the district.
Right. I mean, I just shared like the principal saying, I'm not naming these people, but the principal saying, "Am I doing board goals or strategic plan goals?" Right? When a parent asks, "Why isn't reading mentioned in the strategic plan?" Right? When I hear these things, I don't like blow it off and ignore it. I'm like, how do I make this make sense?
Yeah.
And so I remember talking to the parents saying, "Oh my gosh, like reading is probably the thing we focus on the most," and da 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 da. But it's like it wasn't there, right? And so that's an issue for us. So this year I've been trying to figure out like, well, how do I kind of try to marry or merge board goal work with strategic planning work? And I think most people, I don't want this to sound, don't care, right? Like they just want to see the work getting done.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, it's like, this is something that's maybe more simple for us and hopefully clear for people to see, right? And you know what I mean when I say they don't care. They're not like, wait a second, I thought you said this was strategic planning, not a board.
Right, right.
No one's getting involved in that, but they want to see results or they want to see changes happen, right? And so it's a way for us to show some of what we're doing, but also try to improve it, like be more visible. Like visible is the word that kept ringing in my head.
Well,
Like we're not being visible enough. Sorry. go
I
ahead.
appreciate the systemic approach to it, right? So I think it's going to be the information that you present through the different departments, like the instructional budget, class size. When you present that information, the average class size at the elementary level is 18 kids, right? Then that's a baseline that we know. Do we need to add more stuff because our student achievement isn't there where we want it to be, right? Do we need more intervention services? Do we need less, right? Where do we need to allocate those resources? But it's looking at it in a systemic way, right? And I'm just using class size as an example.
Right.
I know SAGI has done a lot of work with the literature and reading, right? Well, what does that vertical alignment look like, right? What is our vertical, like from kindergarten to 12th grade? What are our reading? How are we teaching reading? What's happening in K3? What's happening in 4-6? What's happening 7-8? What's happening at the high school, right? And so we could see, oh, we bought HMH for our intermediate grade levels. That's working because our student achievement is showing that the kids are getting vocabulary skills and reading comprehension skills through this resource, right? And Foundations is working at the elementary level compounded with Hegarty and whatever else we have. And that's giving the kids that foundational work. And then it's going to say, well, it all goes back to student achievement, right? So I think you could tie it to the measure of student achievement and just having those baselines as to what you present in future presentations to show where we are, right? And it's going to be almost starting at that baseline, right? And then we could go off of that based on what we present.
Yeah, no, totally. And I want to be clear. So it's clear that I made these slides. They're not super, although if I have a lot of time, I can make them, look a lot better. Someone will help me someone will help us with the visuals of this on the website, right? We're going to make it look a little bit better than it's looking right now, or maybe a lot. But we want some substance. Like I want, stuff on a website doesn't solve every issue you have, but it helps at least create a foundation of, this is
Understand.
everything we have planned
Yeah.
and are working on right now and for next year, and then this is how the budget supports that, right? I think there's ways to make this a lot clearer than we're currently doing. And anyway, it goes back to that, when people say things and they stick in my brain for a long time. So, and some of these things, as some of are required by the state, right? Like they're like, you have to submit your blank plan. And so, we're not reinventing the wheel with this. A lot of these things already exist. In my mind, some of the things the state requires are very large and many pages, and I want to make this, that can always be accessible, but I want to make this something that the public can get a quick sense of. Like I don't want to be posting a lot of 50-page plans, right? We can refer to those and make those public, but I want overviews of things for the people, for folks to see, for you all to see.
Yeah, I think this also, I think we've always been, or I'll speak for myself, I feel like knowing that the instructional budget is the largest part of our budget, I've also felt like it's the least flexible part of our budget, and that, in many ways, a lot of it is just sort of rolls over. And so it would be really nice to feel like I could defend that better, that those decisions have been more thoughtful on my part. So I think it's great.
Right. No, and with that, like the instructional thing, the instructional budget, how many like extra classes are needed for the high school to do the 9-period day, right? What are we projecting for roundabout as our proposal to you all in the community if we're able to do a 9-period day at roundabout next, excuse me. So I think those things should be really clear. And when we were prepping for the retreat, that we need to make sure we remember to nail that date down tonight. But
Yeah.
we were talking with Amanda, our consultant, and she was showing us there's a couple of districts in New York State that are like kind of almost like award-winning in terms of budget transparency. Like they've received a lot of accolades for it. So we're looking at that. We won't achieve that in a year, but like they're just being really clear with like class size, and this is how many resources go to intervention teachers, and this is how much goes to mental health in each building. And, it's just like we're not hiding any of this, and we've never tried to hide this, but it's like it just makes it like much easier for people to find. And so, that's when that instructional part of the budget, we want to get into that much more in depth besides what we've done in the past.
Yeah, and if I could share a thought, so I love this. I love the alignment. I love the transparency. I think like where the total number of instructional staff is like not that flexible, but I think how do we like support them to do their best work? Like that's not necessarily a huge budgetary thing, but like what's the curriculum we're supporting them with? What's the professional development? Like those things aren't huge budget items, but if we do those in a really strong way, it helps sort of like them do their best work for our kids. And if we don't, then we're still paying for a lot of teachers but not supporting them. So to me, like what I would love to most hear on the instructional side are like, again, not we're going to go up or down by a ton of teachers, like that's probably not going to happen, but like what are the things that we're doing to support the teachers we have to like do their best work for the kids? And I also think that's something that as a parent and parents I talk to, like there's the most curiosity there. Like what is the curriculum? Like what is the connection between the different schools? Like why do kids have different experience? And I think some of those are answered by like PD and curriculum questions, which again aren't huge line items, but it's like that's how we are supporting our teachers to do their best work. So right. I would be most interested in, when I think about that, like those two things, like the staff we have, I think we support them by providing professional development and providing like really strong curricular and instructional guidance. So even if those aren't huge budget items, like what does that look like so that we're supporting them to do their best work with the kids?
I agree. For the 2 years I've been on, I've always been worried with how much time the staff can actually work together in the confines of their day. I do think the 9-period day at the middle school will allow time for them to work more collaboratively. I don't know about the high school. It's a little different because it's not necessarily team-oriented that way as a middle school might be. But along those same lines, I think that the money spent towards that could lend itself to more PD and work being done, allowing them to be able to do more work together as a staff. Because it's one thing I worry about here is that they just don't have the time, during their day, and I just don't know if you can rely on superintendent's conference days and half days to really do the work. And I think
that's something that came up a lot during the strategic planning process.
Okay,
the
yeah.
teachers are really, and administrators are really talking about like when do we, at the elementary
Yep.
level and then middle school.
Yeah, and the elementary that's a tough one. I mean, when we ask that question, it's hard for them to do it just because it's an elementary stuff. They don't have a lot of time because they're always working in their classrooms. But I think there could be some things with the middle school and even maybe with the high school. I don't know, but I agree. I think it's something to definitely could be very beneficial.
It might be also just helpful for some of the newer board members to go back a little bit in our professional development history, because when I got on the board, there had been very little professional development for a really long time. Anthony, would you?
It wasn't, I felt like there's been PD, but it hasn't been targeted.
Yeah,
It was
a
like,
little
oh,
random.
we're gonna try this consultant out in Colorado and bring them in for
Yeah.
reading, and then it wasn't sustained, or,
Right,
oh,
and
we're
it
gonna
was like-
use this consultant and it's for math, but we don't use that math program, right? It wasn't targeted PD, right? So if we have a strong educational resources, and now we could target that PD to say, hey, this is what we used for PD money last year, this is what it's gonna be this year, and this is how it's gonna be implemented to support what resources our teachers have, right? So making sure that it's targeted PD and not just PD,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like that's the piece. Is like I always felt like it was just like, oh, this is a hot topic. Let's find someone to come in and talk about this,
Yeah.
and it was never sustained.
Well, and it also had to do with the,
The
superintendent
rollover, there was
turnover
some
that we had.
stable. Yep.
But I think that in that sense, like building that as a story could be really like because I think like the culturally responsive classroom training that we did has really changed the elementary school, and we're not really doing that in an active way anymore. But it exists there, and it's done in a turnkey way. But it is like just a very important part of I think the way elementary school is taught now. And so things like that, it's like that's not going to show up in this budget, but it's something that that is I think really important to our culture of care and
But I think it's there because we do the we heard all the schools are doing the positivity project, right? Which is kind of aligned to that goal.
Sure.
It is.
know?
I just feel like telling that story from the beginning
100%.
is helpful just to understand, how we got here.
Yeah, and because we didn't have it, right? It was just like,
We did not have it.
hey, we're dealing with crises, right? And
Yeah.
now, like, it was like, okay, we use PBIS, but now we've expanded, and we're in it because we've had stable leadership, and things have been implemented that, all the schools. It's not just like, oh, one school's working in a silo. It's like all 4 schools and 5 or 6 are now doing the positivity project because they believe it, and now it's sustained. It's going to be sustained, right? So telling that story as to it was just like whatever person liked it and like did it.
Yeah.
Now it's like a sustained practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as a new member, some of that story has come through like the clearest in the elementary school, like when we hear about Science 21 and like the new curriculum, the positivity project. Like I think I've heard the most about the like core instructional experience at the elementary school. And so when we hear about this, like I'm interested in hearing that full story, and then interested in hearing like how we build from there. I feel like I've heard less of that when it gets to middle school and above.
I do think that also kind of goes to this idea that it's a story, it's a story that we have to keep remembering to tell again. And so we did have that workshop that one time where the teachers came in and they demonstrated the, restorative classroom or responsive classroom. And I thought that was really interesting and impactful. And I think stories like that, they need repetition. And so maybe, in addition to all this work that we're doing and making this stuff accessible, we also have to think about what stories do we feel like we've already told, but we actually need to tell again or present in a different way, or how do we attach them to this so that they're accessible to everyone all the time? And I think the responsive classroom and restorative justice is a good example of that.
I think this will be my last comment for this, but something that makes me a little bit nervous about the slides, Matt, are just like, I think I see like 20-ish different plans, and that's like a lot to sort of keep track of. So I'm curious, like, if they each literally need separate plans, or like how is the reading plan and the special education, the curriculum plan, the PD plan, like those all speak to each other, hopefully, with the other things too. So it makes me wonder, like, where do we combine versus separate?
Right.
And then to Flora, your point about like how do we tell the story, like I don't think we need to be hearing about the website more than like once a year, but reading, maybe we want to hear about it like 2 or 3 times a year. Like what's the cadence for the different things? And as a board, and as we're planning our board calendar and agenda, that's like a hard question to answer if there are like 20 or more different plans. But if there's a smaller number, it would help us to say, yeah, we should hear about this every quarter, but this we don't need to hear about more than once
Do you know
a
what
year.
the hard part is with that, Chris? Is the plans that we won't want to do are state mandated. I'm looking at the plans.
The
right,
number
and I'm
did go
seeing
up a
that
little
they
bit
are.
when I started
And they're
adding the state ones.
We already got to do that one. We already got to do that one. We got to do that one, right? So it's like it's going to be like, oh, we don't want to do this, but because we want to do this one, that's not state mandated, but we're going to end up doing that one anyway because we have to report it to the state too. So I had the same thing, but I was like, man, these are already, we have to submit to the state anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I felt like this was a really productive conversation. Did anybody else want to end with any other questions or comments? No? Okay.
Can I,
Yes.
are you all here for the appointment? Yeah.
Yeah, but we're okay to watch the meeting.
We're gonna go into exec though. They're,
It's an appointment.
I got it.
okay. Just their daughter's being appointed.
Oh,
And so, so they don't have to sit through exec.
so
Anthony will make a motion.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I really wanted you to see my whole presentation, but,
Very patient.
I would like to make a motion to adjust the agenda.
Okay, can I get a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Meredith. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
I would like to pull 13.01A1.
13.01A1. Okay, so then do I say we're going to vote on 13.01? Can I get a motion?
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve 13.01A1?
So moved.
Motion.
Okay,
Chris.
motion and second by Anthony. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes 8-0. So that's, it's Sadie DeRubio?
Correct.
All
Congratulations.
right, congratulations.
we're very happy to have her.
That's a good hire. That's-
Okay,
Thanks for doing that.
yeah. I just want to say that was a super helpful conversation. So we'll talk later about when we're gonna come together with talking about the board goals and how we want to measure those and articulate them. Okay, so next we are going to hear from our student representatives. I will start with you, Sarah.
I don't really have anything to say. This was interesting, kind of seeing how things are and how they're going to be organized better. And yeah,
I have a question, but it's not based off like the presentation.
That's okay.
When there's a snow day or a 2-hour delay, I know all the parents get like an email, but I was wondering if the students can get an email too.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want the phone call as well?
No.
I'll talk
Good
to
answer.
the tech department to see.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think they should get the phone call at 5.
that's classic.
Hopefully their phone is far
was gonna-
far away from them.
I try to shelter my 13-year-old from the 5 a.m. call. I like hide his stuff.
My son just has the BCSD website like up, and he like opens it at like 6:30. Okay, moving on. Was that all you wanted to say? Okay, that was a really great idea. Okay, so
I'll check on them.
Thank you.
reviewing the agenda, there are a couple of changes. In 13.01, non-instructional appointments, we're moving A4 Jennifer Pego as a substitute nurse, and then adding A7 Jose Flores as a teacher's aide. Now can I have a motion for the board to adjourn to executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual? The board will return in about 30 minutes.
So moved.
So move, second?
Second.
Second by Semra. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Passes. We'll be back in 30 minutes. We are back. All right, Matt, superintendent's report?
I just have a couple of quick things.
Sure.
A couple of things happening either at or before our next board meeting. We're going to introduce our valedictorian and salutatorian at the next board meeting, so that's always
Nice.
exciting. Prior to our board meeting, and I'll send you a reminder about this. I think we're shooting for 6:15. We're going to do a little commendation for one employee who is really instrumental in dealing with the small fire we had in the chemistry room, and so we're going to unveil that then. But if any board members are available, and I'll send a reminder, we're going to do a ceremony before the board meeting starts. For Tom, and so he has some guests coming too. Trying to do that in the larger commendation ceremony would have been too hard to fit all in here, and we want to do something special for him. So Tom we're gonna do that for him, and so I'll send a reminder if there's some board members available. It'd be great. And then just maybe I can ask now.
That would be great.
For the retreat, 3 people. I wasn't asking for answers, but 3 people answered with March 13th or March 27th. Those are Thursdays. And I know, Flora, you said start at 6:30, which I think is
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
But I don't know if Thursday, if those 2 days. And Amanda put a little star next to March 13th because she will be in the area then, but that's not a requirement, but it's just, but I don't know if either of those days work for anyone else.
What was the other one, 27th?
Yeah.
I can do 13th.
I could do 13th, 27 is harder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
13th is
Good
good.
for me. 27th.
Actually, I can do the 13th at 6. My son's, he has a soccer clinic, but it ends the week before, so I'm all clear for 6 o'clock on the 13th.
Okay, I'm good.
It's
For
good
the
for everybody,
13th.
that's fine.
All right, let's make it,
Go with
maybe this time we can
Third time's a charm.
make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right, let's move on to board comments and committee reports. Semra?
I just want to, I thought that was a great presentation you made earlier, and I love the idea of drawing the lines really clearly for parents about what we're doing and how that's, I think that would be helpful for me, for sure. Like, professional development is creating, is supporting this curriculum, so I thought that was a great idea. I look forward to that being explored. And I saw like a grant from Community Foundations of Hudson Valley, and I just wanted to thank them for those grants. Mean a lot, I think, to kids for those special field trips.
Great. Chris?
No comment tonight, thanks.
Okay. Levon?
No comment.
Eric?
I just want to make sure I have my calendar right. Do we have audit committee on the 19th?
Oh,
Is that what people have?
We did say, yep.
Is that right? I just wanted to double check.
Okay.
And I do apologize, there was a mix-up with the facilities tonight.
Oh, I see.
I think
I should have taken care of that. That was on me.
that, either or. But I think we're looking at the 24th, March 24th is the next meeting, probably at 6, I guess.
Yeah. And we set up the first round of the subcommittee, the field committee, the theater committee, and the school entryway committee. I think it'd be great if we can try to meet twice, before the 24th. So we're trying to have that 24th meeting be as definitive and clear as possible. So the more we can get done with that. So
We have, those dates aren't locked up yet, are they, or
I
what?
sent out,
Oh, is that final? I don't,
yeah,
First meeting.
what's it,
yeah, just the first one sent out. I sent out a calendar thing for,
that's February 20th?
That's my meeting, my committee is, I thought all 3 were the same.
they're
day.
back to back,
Yeah.
because they'll
It's
be
like
here
4
in
to 5,
person.
5 to 6, 6 to
Oh,
7.
maybe I didn't get that, I don't
Oh,
know.
whoa. What day is this?
The
When are-
20th.
Okay.
This is, you don't have to come to this,
Oh, no. Oh, you mean all 3 of the subcommittees?
are like-
What are the times?
Yeah, it was at 4,
Yeah.
Yeah, but what one was
Yeah.
at what time?
So that's me.
Fields, and 6 is theater.
That's February 20th.
20th.
Yeah.
So the security is 4? And where's that?
We're going to do them all here.
Here? Okay, perfect. Okay, great.
In the LGI?
So not everyone from Tetra Tech will be here in person, but we thought if as many of us could be in person, like we can do them back to back. And then maybe at that one, we'll try to schedule one more before March 24th, just because I have a feeling this one will be a little bit of brainstorming and seeing what's possible, and then maybe we can kind of start nailing down a plan.
And it's okay.
But we haven't set the second one yet.
Is it only you have to come for the whole thing, or
It's just for the facilities.
Oh,
not?
these are like this is like a subcommittee of the facilities.
Oh, okay. I'm confused.
Sorry.
Oh, no, don't, you, because you hadn't heard about it before.
All right, I was like, I would like to hear about
Yeah.
theater.
Report back.
I was fighting for the theater, but Meredith
Yeah.
totally.
And we
wanted to
arm
take
wrestled
that.
and I beat him, and
Yeah.
so I got the theater.
The irony. Okay, so that's all, so that's squared away.
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
I'm all done. That's
Oh,
it.
great,
Thank you.
great. Anthony?
Eric clarified my questions.
So that's it?
I'm good.
Okay, Meredith?
I went to the NISBA, or I attended virtually the NISBA Capital Conference on Friday morning, and also at our DCSBA meeting Thursday night, we heard from Evan Sullivan from Ostroff Associates, which is like the lobbying firm that supports the Lower Hudson Education Coalition. And we were just talking about the overall budget and what our advocacy issues are. And yeah, everyone's kind of saying the same thing. I did want to point out that the school aid budget went up the least of any of the different buckets. I can forward everyone a screenshot of it, but I just thought that was interesting to note. Like Medicaid went up 14%, executive agencies went up 9%, we went up 4.7%, just for a bigger picture. But everyone was really excited about the universal school lunch. There was a lot of talk about the cell phone policy and that people are really pushing for local control of what that means. So we'll see what that looks like in the final budget. And it's interesting that these parents were here tonight about the BOCES programs, because there was also a lot of talk about more money, raising the threshold for the teacher salaries for CTE. And I guess that hasn't happened in Beacon as far as I know, but it is happening in other districts. Wappingers has talked a lot about it, that they're basically having to turn students away from the BOCES programs because they can't afford it, because they're having to supplement beyond what is covered through state aid to send their kids through BOCES. I don't know if this is an issue for you in Wallkill at all. Is that?
No, Ulster BOCES is, they created a new facility. They're leasing out iPark in Kingston, and they're expanding their programs. But like, it's tough. I know on a district, like, you hate to not tell a kid they're going, right? It fits
Yeah, I mean,
into
it's such a crucial.
New York Inspire, right, with the portrait of a graduate that the state is recommending and all that stuff, and the career readiness and the college readiness and stuff. But it's also expensive, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something, that we got to kind of balance out. If we send more kids there,
Well, I think
is our
that,
teaching staff going to be less? And
yeah,
stuff, too?
I mean, I actually think the portrait of a graduate will put like a very interesting pressure on this in a good way.
There definitely a state needs to do something with the
Yeah.
funding part.
Well, they're advocating to raise the threshold from $30,000 to $60,000. So we'll see if that ends up in the final budget. I would say preschool was not mentioned nearly enough, and I feel like that needs to be our new drum. Like I think we've talked about for the last really like 5 years about universal school meals, and now we're seeing that in the budget. And I think that if we sort of start to just talk about how pre-K we should think of school as pre-K through 12, not K through 12, because it's just such an important program for everyone. The state education department recommended asking our representatives, just a little heads up, what they plan to do to support and programs that are threatened by federal cuts. And the last thing I want to mention is the two education chairs came on, Shelley Mayer and I can't remember his first name, but Benedetto. And they had two very different takes on the electric bus mandate. Shelley Mayer was like, I am all for this. I do not want to change the deadline. I want to help find money to make it happen. Benedetto was looking for more flexibility in the timeline, et cetera. So that, I think that's a conversation maybe we should have at some point to take a position as a district, given that they're like within the education committee, there's these two very different points of view, but it doesn't have to happen before this budget is finalized.
Right.
And lastly, they have this kind of interesting journalists roundtable, and the journalists were saying that they do not expect an on-time budget, that Hochul has proven that she kind of likes to throw a little bomb within the last like week before the budget is finalized, and so we'll see if that happens this time.
But with that, it will not be lower than what she proposed.
It will not be lower than what she proposed, for sure. It'll just be like, is there some odd thing? And I think the cell phone thing could become very, like it depends how much she wants to stick to what she's written, since does seem like there's a lot of push. Everyone's for a policy, but people just don't agree.
I think that she kind of demised the role of board members by doing that. Like, we know our district and we know what we want to do with it. Like, she kind of took that control away from us as elected officials.
Yeah, and I think NYSBA has actually represented us really well in that, and just said like, this is not a one-size-fits-all problem or solution. So it'll be interesting to see. And so I am going to go to Albany on Wednesday and meet with probably Rollison's aide and definitely Jonathan Jacobson's chief of staff. So let you guys know.
Comms person, yeah.
Yeah, comms person.
That's all right. Okay. I just wanted to give everyone an update on the BCSD newsletter. The Prawl Committee, you should have received some suggestions for a title for the newsletter, and then some banner options. The content itself, I have been in contact with Desiree. She had sent a draft over on Friday, but there are a few pieces of it that really need to be fleshed out more before we actually share it for revisions and share it with the community. So we're working on that. Weather permitting, maybe we'll have something this week, although my sons swear it's going to be a 2-day week, so we'll see. I also just wanted to mention that, some of us were at the basketball game earlier before, and it was so much fun. And I always tell myself, I should do that stuff more. My kids don't really participate in sports at the school, and so I feel like I miss out on a lot of that stuff. But every time I go, I have a great time, and I'm so glad I'm there. So good job, athletics department. That is all from me. So we will move on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right for all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 15.08 minus, what was the one that we did? Minus 15.01A1? 13, sorry, I couldn't hear you. 13.01A1.
So moved.
Moved by Levon, second.
Second.
Second by Meredith. Comments or questions?
Sorry, can I actually ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
And if we need to get back to it, that's fine. But I was curious, in 1505 and 1506, there's like a risk assessment with a bunch of recommendations, and there's a corrective action plan with like a couple of the recommendations. And I just wasn't sure, like what, how those were chosen, or like what happened to the other recommendations that weren't in the corrective action plan. Does that, I know Anne Marie's not here today, but is that question clear, or should I ask that later?
Is that a question that we should hold for Anne Marie, or?
Chris, can you articulate that again?
Yep. The risk assessment in 1505 shared a long list of recommendations. And then the corrective action plan had, I think, 4 or 5 recommendations. So, like, we will act on 4 or 5 of those recommendations. So, question, just what I didn't know was, how are those 4 or 5 chosen among, like, all of the recommendations? And is there a plan for the other recommendations the auditors shared with us?
I think the beginning part, I think they all were addressed. I don't remember though why, you're right, why the correction action plan was shorter. I don't remember that though.
Would these be the ones that haven't been started yet, and the other ones were, some of the recommendations are in process on the audit side?
But in the past, it's always been like all of them, and some are in process and some are like the plan.
In the corrective
past-
action plan?
Yeah,
In past corrective action plan. I mean, when I used to be on the audit.
I can get an answer. I don't have an answer beyond what
I know what you mean though. There were a longer list in the original, the
Yeah.
first document than the second.
And I know that was from, I think, July was dated maybe, and I know the corrective action was February, so I don't know if that's part of it, but I just didn't understand the difference.
we can come back with an answer
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so, are there any more comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Chris, second.
Second.
Second by Meredith. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Good night.